we have a new student with us. She just moved here from Africa.
Welcome.
I'm from Michigan.
Great. I'm 16, but until today, I was homeschooled. And then it was goodbye, Africa. And hello, high school. Hi, I'm Katie.
I'm Jess. This is Damien.
Watch out, new meat coming through.
This map shows the school's central nervous system, the cafeteria.
You got your cool Asians, burnouts, jocks, the greatest people you will ever meet, and the worst.
So you've never been to a real school before?
Shut up.
Shut up! I didn't say anything. Plastics. Who are the plastics?
They're teen royalty.
That's Karen Smith.
She is one of the dumbest girls you will ever meet.
I'm kind of psychic. Really? It's like I have ESPN or something.
Gretchen Wieners.
She has 2 Fendi purses and a silver Lexus.
And evil takes a human form in Regina George. She knows everything about everyone.
That's why her hair is so big. It's full of secrets.
We want to invite you to have lunch with us. Regina seems sweet.
Get in, loser. We're going shopping.
Your house is really nice.
I know, right?
Being with the plastics was like leaving the actual world and entering girl world.
Have you seen any guys that you think are cute yet?
There's this guy in my calculus class. His name's Aaron Samuels.
No. That's Regina's ex-boyfriend. Ex-boyfriends are off limits. I mean, that's just like the rules of feminism.
Gretchen told me that you like Aaron Samuels. I could talk to him for you if you want.
Really? You would do that?
You're so hot.
Why would she do that?
She's a life ruiner.
I knew how this would be settled in the animal world. But this was girl world. All the fighting had to be sneaky.
I want to lose 3 pounds.
They're these nutrition bars my mom uses to lose weight. It won't close.
It's a 5. You could try Sears.
Why are you eating a Caltine bar?
What?
They make you gain weight like crazy.
Who does she think she is? I like invented her.
I'm sorry I laughed at you.
I'm sorry I called you fat.
I'm sorry that people are so jealous of me. But I can't help it that I'm popular.
Walk it off. Walk it off.
You know who's looking fine tonight? Seth Mosikowski. He is your cousin. What? He's a good kisser.
One of the most studied areas in psychology, especially involving children, is aggression. Extensive research on childhood aggression has been founded on the deleterious effect of behavioral or conduct issues on development. However, most traditional studies focus on male aggression, so much so that a good number of studies do not involve girls. The overfocus on physical aggression has resulted in the collection of a wide base of empirical knowledge on the development and outcomes of aggression in boys without understanding the role of aggressive behavior in girls and the relevant outcomes. Physical aggression is commonly linked to traditionally masculine traits, including competitiveness, assertiveness, and impulsiveness, and to a lesser degree, verbal aggression. Men are more likely to report antisocial behaviors, stimulus-seeking, egocentricity, affective features of depression, affective instability, and less perceived social support. Extensive research on physical aggression has often led to the conclusion that girls are not aggressive in peer interactions. Forms of aggression examined in the past have only been unique to boys, with girls expressing aggression that has often been ignored. The consistent study of observable conflict, especially in marriage, has limited our understanding of aggression. Viewing marriage from a social lens requires the examination of both direct and indirect aggression. The pursuit to rectify the overfocus of aggression in boys has guided the recent interests in researching aggression in girls. Relational aggression has been fronted as one of the promising areas of research that seeks to explain behavioral issues in young girls and adult women. The concept of relational aggression was first fronted in Finland and later conceptualized in the United States. Studies on relational aggression have improved the understanding of aggression in girls, which was thought to be non-existent, with emergence being observed as early as in the preschool developmental years. Relational aggression research counters the myth of benign childhoods for young girls by providing insights into a different type of aggressive and antisocial behavior. The reasons for perceiving girls as incapable of harm or aggression revolve around the lack of accurate relational aggression measures and the minimal likelihood of accounting for differences in socialization for the genders. The perception of aggression in men and women also dominates marital conflict studies, which focus on negativity, reciprocating negative behavior, prolonged negative interactions, and escalating negative interactions in distressed compared to non-distressed couples. Put simply, disengagement and withdrawal are common features in marital conflict. Aggression is often defined as intentional attempts at causing harm to others, either physically by hitting them or the manipulation of social relationships. In the quest to hurt others and inflict harm, individuals do so in ways that damage the goals valued by the respective gender peer group. Girls value interpersonal relationships while boys value physical dominance and instrumentality, a phenomenon that could explain perceived gender difference in physical and relational aggression. Relational aggression refers to behaviors employed with the purpose of damaging relationships or a threat of the same. The behaviors are broadly categorized into direct and indirect relational aggression acts. On the one hand, an example of a direct act might be excluding a peer from exciting plans, such as a girls' night out, unless they do as instructed. On the other hand, one of the most indirect acts of relational aggression involves silent treatment or spreading nasty rumors about a peer to influence their social exclusion. Some sources suggest that love withdrawal, which includes silent treatment or the withdrawal of affection, is a type of relational aggression where the behavior directly and consistently confronts spouse inattentiveness. Social sabotage, such as sharing sensitive information about a partner behind their back or spreading rumors and gossip, encompasses harming a partner in a series of indirect and calculated acts. Instead of dealing with marital issues within the institution, partners, mostly women, choose to defame their spouse by adding a third party into the dynamics of the marriage. Relational aggression is sometimes simplified as a subtle form of bullying, even though bullying requires persistent power differentiation between the aggressor and the victim. In the context of peer relationships, the aggressor could have more power by being, say, the most attractive or affluent in the group, so they end up calling the shots. In heterosexual relationships, women being raised to be more expressive places them in a position of power to employ relational aggression tactics, since men are not as expressive or lack the language and skills to do so. The focus on the harm caused by manipulation in relationships distinguishes relational and other forms of aggression. Physical aggression is one of the most studied types of aggression as it involves visible damage to an individual. Verbal aggression, which includes insults that are not exactly restricted to the constructs of relationships, is rarely studied because the effects are mostly invisible and accumulate over time. The fact that relational aggression is not visible implies that assessment and management could be very difficult. The over-focus on overt aggression has led to the misguided conclusion that girls do not exhibit aggression in peer relationships. Besides, verbal aggression is notoriously common in women, and with the wonderful woman effect, women are presented and perceived by society to be incapable of any wrong. Worth pointing out is the fact that there is a difference between relational and indirect aggression. Particularly, indirect aggression contains behaviors of hostility in which the perpetrator is not in direct contact with the victim. Examples of indirect acts of aggression include putting sugar in someone's gas tank, egging someone's house, and sending nasty mails. Intimate partner violence in relationships is commonly divided into physical and psychological aggression. Physical aggression, which is often the primary focus of intimate partner violence, encompasses attacks directed at harming a partner's body, including hitting, kicking, and punching. Psychological aggression primarily involves verbal aggression, which includes insults and coercive non-verbal behaviors that cover anything from smashing objects to slamming doors. The term psychological aggression is often used in terms of behavioral expression rather than the outcomes of such behaviors. Common psychological aggression domains include contingent love expression, emotional or interpersonal withholding, psychological destabilization, rigid gender role expectations, degradation, economic abuse, monopolization, isolation, and the creation of fear. In this era of woke people, gender is often defined as characteristics learned through social experiences as opposed to an individual's biological sex, because biological markers do not define social experiences in any manner. Boys are rewarded, punished, or ignored for being physically aggressive, while girls are often taught verbal rationale in place of overt aggression in most cases. Some studies suggest that socialization informs girls' choices to mask their anger instead of physically expressing it. However, constantly tying aggression to socialization is greatly challenged by studies that find girls, from adolescence, to be as aggressive or more than boys. Relational aggression, which refers to intentionally inflicting harm to others using social relationships, is most often exhibited in females compared to males. Boys are more concerned with physical dominance, with girls valuing social interactions and interpersonal relationship. Girls using relational aggression is quite the startling revelation considering the perception of girls as innocent and incapable of any harm. Media portrayals significantly influence gender differences in the adoption of behavior. The average American child watches 3.5 hours of television every day. Over 60% of interaction on television contains some form of violence. School-going boys write their own stories that include heroism, danger, conflict, and aggression. Some studies find a relationship between exposure to violence on the screens and aggressive behavior. Similarly, there is a relationship between televised indirect aggression and indirect aggressive behavior among girls. Peer groups respond more positively to assertiveness from boys compared to girls, with peers being likely to segregate into same-sex groups. Physical aggression is most commonly reported among boys while relational aggression is common in girls by the age of 4 years. Girls are more likely, than boys, to show relational orientation and exhibit the tendency to focus on and invest in interpersonal relationships. As measured over a 12-month period, girls' relational aggression increases way more significantly compared to boys. This phenomenon implies that if left untreated, relational aggression enjoys massive developmental periods. First-grade girls are more likely than boys to socially exclude from an unfamiliar peer. While boys are generally angrier than girls, girls are more likely to employ indirect aggression tactics such as telling lies in the pursuit of social exclusion. Female interpersonal orientation implies that the use of relational aggression is effective among girls as it damages the thing that they value. Relational aggression involves behaviors consistent with known female stereotypes, thereby being less likely to attract any form of sanctions from partners, society, or authorities. Worth pointing out is the fact that measuring relational and overt aggression equalizes the genders in the context of aggression. However, some studies suggest that while girls are more relationally aggressive than boys and are as likely to be represented in extremely aggressive groups as boys, the degree of aggressiveness exhibited by girls has largely been underestimated by previous studies, primarily through minimal assessment. This phenomenon in part is linked to the ease of assessing one kid hitting the other compared to evaluation of excluding a kid from a peer social group. Although the primary goal of aggression is to cause harm, overt and relational aggression offers different information about children's social behavior. Including relational aggression in the definition of aggression reveals that girls are as aggressive as boys. Girls and boys view relational aggression as harmful to others, but girls are more likely to employ relationally aggressive tactics in their peer groups and girls report more distress when subjected to relational aggression. Between the ages of 8 and 11, girls appear to increase their reliance on relational aggression, whereas boys decrease their reliance on the same. Boys' preference of gender-based physical aggression is in line with the socio-cognitive influence of behavior. Boys view overt aggression as normative expression of anger, which is the same with girls, and relational aggression, of course completely discarding biology in terms of testosterone in men and the interpersonal presentation of the self in women. Other studies suggest the lack of gender differences in relational aggression as measured in adults, since most studies focus on children. These studies therefore suggest that while physical aggression in young boys translates into adulthood, relational aggression in young girls does not. The studies are challenged by those that examine relational aggression in marriage and find that nearly all wives ignore their spouses or withhold sex and affection in times of conflict. Slightly more than half of husbands and 2/3 of wives engage in social sabotage, that is, spreading negative information about a spouse, recruiting third parties to take part in arguments, and embarrassing a partner in front of others. Fewer wives and husbands actually recognize relational aggression in marriage. Withholding love and affection in marriage aims to make spouses suffer or take notice and ultimately restore balance in the relationship. Girls being more likely than boys to employ relational aggression tactics translates into wives being more relationally aggressive than husbands. Noteworthy, The gender differences in relational aggression reduce as men mature and give up their physical aggression background through female interaction. Independence and autonomy are fundamental from the earliest developmental stages of an individual. The relevance of autonomy is different in boys and girls. Women place importance in interpersonal relationships compared to independence. Women are also more likely to explain their ideal self in terms of interpersonal relationships. The self-constructual influences how people approach and manage relationships. People who value interpersonal relationships have the ability to form and nurture intimate relationships, while those who value independence being inclined towards sabotaging relationships. In simple terms, ladies develop their self in terms of interdependence, thereby developing skills to forge, protect, and enhance intimate relationships. Relational aggression involves aggression aimed at sabotaging personal relationships. Some studies divide relational aggression into direct social aggression and non-confrontational aggression. On the one hand, the perpetrator in direct aggression is known because it is confrontational. On the other hand, non-confrontational aggression involves spreading rumors. Women are more engaged in non-confrontational aggression so as not to damage relationships. Thus, women, in exhibiting aggression, conform to their self-orientations. Relationally aggressive behavior is explained using two relationship-oriented foundations, that is, alleviating freedom or creating excitement, and friendship or group processes. Creating excitement encompasses girls making their lives interesting and giving the group content to talk about by gossiping about their peers. Group processes include attention, group inclusion, self-protection, and revenge. Group process explanations revolve around gaining attention by information sharing, establishing in and out group status, and retaliation for previous transgression. Other studies suggest that gender differences in aggression boil down to the factor structure of aggression, that is, adolescent boys consolidate aggression components into direct confrontation while adolescent girls divide aggression into direct confrontation and social aggression. In terms of the 5-factor model, we have a series of videos on this channel covering the gender personality differences if that is something that might be of interest to you. Women are more open to feelings, warm, agreeable, tender-minded, trustful, anxious, and neurotic, while men are more open to ideas and assertive. Women's neuroticism is evident as measured by the higher frequency of reporting borderline personality disorders, eating disorders, major depression, dysmorphic disorders, and anxiety disorder, while men are more likely to report anxiety disorders. Physical aggression in men is associated with disagreeableness and introversion, while in women it is associated with conscientiousness, depression, higher neuroticism and low stress management. Worth pointing out is that disagreeableness for either gender is a common predictor of aggression in both men and women. Language, which is fundamental in the execution of relational aggression, is quickly acquired in girls than it is in boys. Language skill acquisition in girls remains consistent with age and socioeconomic status. Interestingly, the relationship between language acquisition and the expression of relational aggression is stronger in boys than it is in girls, which is commonly rationalized by the fact that girls are socialized to be relationally aggressive, and as such, language could minimally impact the deployment of the relevant strategies. Also, physical aggression, which is mostly studied in boys, presents a stronger relationship with language acquisition compared to relational aggression. Particularly, poor language skills are a predictor of physical aggression. Other studies suggest that expressive language has an inverse relationship with relational aggression in girls, that is, when a child is unable to express themselves, they are more likely to resort to relational aggression. Expressive language and relational aggression in young girls could also be associated with the fact that at a young age, girls have not acquired the right skills to be verbally aggressive. It is evident that the relationship between language and relational aggression is quite complex and is manipulated by a number of variables. For instance, recognizing social cues and acting in an acceptable manner predicts the prevalence of physical aggression. Human interaction requires noticing social cues, interpreting the cues, and evaluating the responses before actually responding. Children who do not interpret cues accordingly are susceptible to acting in socially unacceptable manners, including being aggressive. All in all, aggressive responses employed by children when they cannot interpret social cues depends on their age, gender, socialization, and language acquisition. Parenting styles really influence the adoption and deployment of relational aggression tactics. Inconsistent parental supervision, harsh treatment, failure to set boundaries, neglect in rewarding pro-social behavior, and coercive parenting styles raise aggressive children. Overt aggression is linked to coercion, lack of responsiveness, and psychological control, while relational aggression is associated with less responsiveness and maternal coercion. Parents and children's coercive behaviors are reciprocal. Mothers' internalized problems and their sense of competence is related to children's behavioral problems. Parental conflict is linked to both overt and relational aggression. Lack of the basic needs of food, shelter, and clothing raises the risk of stressors that hinder positive parenting, interaction, and problem solving. Poverty hinders the optimal development of 1 in 5 American children. The biological influences of brain damage, neuropathology problems, low IQ, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder raise the risk of developing social problems that are linked to or lead to relational aggression. Preschoolers, grade schoolers, and adolescents perceive acts of relational aggression as hurtful, emotionally distressing, and hostile, especially as reported by girls. Relational aggression also results in a series of adjustment issues, such as problematic friendships, peer rejection, externalizing difficulties, internalizing problems, depressive/anxious symptoms, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, personality disorders, and delinquent behavior or disruptive behavioral disorders. Relational aggression is associated with egocentricity and peer rejection among boys, while it is linked to reduced life satisfaction, bulimic symptoms, self-harm, stimulus seeking, negative relationships, peer rejection, depression, affective instability, and antisocial behavior in girls. When boys engage in relational aggression, which is a non-normative practice, they present greater adjustment difficulties than girls. This phenomenon also holds true for when girls are extremely physically aggressive and they are at greater risk of developing difficult social psychological adjustment outcomes. Overall, physically and relationally aggressive children present serious adaptation and social psychological maladjustment issues. The friendships of relationally aggressive children contain aversive features, which include high levels of jealousy and exclusivity preference. Romantic relationships of relationally aggressive adults contain problematic behaviors including jealousy, lack of trust, frustration, and anxious partner clinginess. Relational aggression exhibits a positive relationship with stress, anger, loneliness, delinquency, and personal problems related to alcohol use. Adolescent victims of relational aggression perceive their school environments as less safe. Among students, relational aggression is linked to a series of maladaptive problems including academic burnout, trait anger, and stress, in addition to the already discussed mental health problems. Particularly, negative trait anger correlates include misinterpreting social environments, reduced social support, and social skill deficits. Thus, trait anger is a predictor of relational and overt aggression. Theoretical explanations for the relationship between relational aggression and emotional problems revolve around the context of relationships. For instance, relationally aggressive students transfer the aggression to romantic relationships, eliciting abandonment fears and the development of relationship issues. Emotionally maladjusted students could employ relationally aggressive tactics because they lack the necessary adaptive skills to sustain healthy relationships, especially poor social skills. Relationally aggressive children are generally disliked and rejected by their peers. Rejection may also precede aggression, with rejected individuals harming peer relationships in retaliation for lack of success in them. Relationally aggressive children are popular with some peers, a phenomenon that gives them social authority and the necessary control to manipulate the relationships. Those from high social status are in great positions to deploy relationally aggressive tactics because of their positions of social power. Both relational and overt aggression are associated with similar levels of peer disliking and social behaviors, with the only exception being relational aggression presenting a stronger relationship with depression in girls compared to boys. The frequency of experiencing relational aggression is tied to negative feelings of self-worth for girls compared to boys. Relational aggression more strongly predicts psychological adjustment issues for girls compared to boys. Thus, girls are most likely to be the perpetrators and victims of relational aggression. Relationally aggressive girls are also viewed as shy, withdrawn, and sad. Couple relationships suffer when relation aggression tactics are implemented. Aggressive partners are more likely to exhibit adjustment difficulties, including substance abuse, depression, and loneliness. Exclusion strategies in marital relationships, including silent treatment or stonewalling, trying to get the children to side with one parent, denigrating the other parent in front of the children, and using children in marital conflicts, are linked to significant distress and contribute to marital dissolution by negatively affecting marital quality as well as stability. Particularly, social sabotage creates a longer-lasting effect on a marriage than love withdrawal because of the fact that it involves third parties by causing social problems beyond the scope of the marriage. Men and women view love withdrawal similarly, but they view social sabotage differently. Particularly, wives view social sabotage as less of a problem than husbands do. This is based on the female practice of corumination, where individuals discuss and extensively revisit problems, speculate upcoming problems, and focus on negative feelings among their peers or friends. The practice increases the quality of friendships, as well as the levels of depression and anxiety. Wives take corumination tendencies into marriage, and failure to properly manage what is shared with friends could have dire consequences. Studies suggest that 8% of couples report physical aggression, while 80% report verbal aggression. Women are more likely, than men, to employ psychological aggression, while men are more likely to injure their partners in physical exchanges. Society's ignorance of mental health issues, especially because the most extreme of outcomes, that is suicide, affect men, comes to play here, with the presentation of physical aggression as more serious than verbal aggression that is perpetrated by women. The outcomes of physical aggression are more visible than those of verbal aggression, and as such, men are generally presented as being more aggressive than women, despite verbal aggression being more prevalent in relationships compared to physical aggression. The point being, relational aggression is as overt and as detrimental as physical aggression, and there are enough studies to support that. Rationale is fundamental when developing interventions, especially in understanding that relational aggression is not just a phase. Social prominence and relational aggression interact over time, and as such, prominent children, especially girls, should be placed under careful examination by both teachers and parents as they develop, because they are likely to be sanctioned by their peers. Interventions that only focus on aggression are likely to fail because aggression is fundamental in maintaining necessary social hierarchies. Effective interventions should address peer group dynamics and individual behaviors. An approach to dealing with group dynamics is changing the behaviors rewarded by high social statuses. Teenage girls prefer adults staying out of their conflicts, and as such, limiting adult control could be helpful in intervention implementation. Functional behavior assessment identifies what reinforces relationally aggressive behaviors and subsequently replacing the reinforcements with other positive ones. Interviews with aggressive students provide insights on how behaviors manifest. When the function of the behavior is evident, interventions may be developed to reinforce positive replacement behaviors. Positive climates and cultures result in fewer referrals, less bullying, and appropriate interactions. Inclusion, tolerance, and respect negatively impact relational aggression. Developmental skills and social support minimize the impact of victimization from relational aggression. Children targeted by relationally aggressive peers are less depressed if they have other supportive peers and families. Social skills training that include role-playing opportunities facilitate the creation of healthy peer relationship. Interventions that focus on developing skills that can be practiced, observed, and reinforced rather than focusing on attitudes and beliefs tend to be most successful. For instance, toolting focuses on teaching and reinforcing pro-social skills rather than the exclusive focus on negative behavior. Tutoring involves peers reporting the positive behaviors of others. The Empower program and the Ophelia project have been developed to address relational aggression in schools and promote relational aggression awareness in communities. The Empower program, implemented in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, works with youth to end the culture of violence. The program teaches leadership skills to young people in youth-oriented initiatives. The Owning Up curriculum of the program is founded on individuals acting based on gender stereotypes and requires bystanders to stop aggression instead of ignoring it. The Ophelia project is focused on creating positive environments for the perpetrators of relational aggression, girls. The project involves educating parents to interact better with their daughters and raise awareness about relational aggression. Group-based interventions with relationally aggressive ladies reduce the positive attitudes associated with the behaviors. People, including law enforcement, courts, and other agencies, generally respond to physical compared to relational aggression, and hopefully this video will go a long way into perceiving both as dangerous and responding to them equally.